Welcome back to Full Circle Florida. According to the State Department, the top 3 nations for human trafficking are the United States, Mexico, and the Philippines. Florida is the 3rd most populated state. It's the 3rd worst state for human trafficking. This week, the dark world of trafficking made headlines in Tampa. Tampa Bay Rays shortstop Wander Franco charged with the crime. So this week, I spoke with Nic McKinley, an ex-CIA agent who founded deliverfund.org, dedicated to ending the trafficking of humans. Nic, the news broke this week that Tampa Bay Rays shortstop Wander Franco was charged with human trafficking, among other things. You know, this guy was once the pride and joy of the Rays organization, one of the biggest up-and-coming stars in Major League Baseball, and here he's now connected to human trafficking. And I think a lot of people look at human trafficking like it's a thing that doesn't happen where they live. Yeah, it happens, but it kind of happens in the shadows of maybe a border town, or it happens in the back alleys of a big city. What is the reality when it comes to human trafficking, where it's occurring, how often, and who it's happening to?
I think one of the biggest myths about human trafficking is that it's an over there problem, not an over here problem. Human trafficking happens in every community across the United States. And if it's not happening actively right now, it will be happening shortly because traffickers are incredibly transient. And that was one of my big epiphanies when I was working at the Central Intelligence Agency and ran into human trafficking, is I just thought it was it was an over there problem. It was happening in Pakistan and India and Cambodia. But when I actually looked at the data and realized that dollar for dollar, the largest human trafficking market is the United States of America.
I think that would shock a lot of people. And yet you would think that this topic would be more in the lexicon of the media, that more political leaders and candidates this year would be talking about it in an election year. But you hardly ever hear an elected official mention human trafficking. I don't recall either presidential candidate talking about it. It certainly didn't come up in the most recent debate. Why do you think this topic is not getting the attention it deserves?
I don't think human trafficking is getting the proper political attention it deserves because a lot of our politically elected officials are the customers. When you look at Representative Matt Gaetz is currently under an investigation. He had a very close friend who admitted to human trafficking to being complicit in human trafficking. So when you have our political elites and our elected leaders engaging in the commercial sex industry, the majority of which is human trafficking. A lot of people think that, well, the majority of the commercial sex industry is actually just prostitution, but that is just not true. Human traffickers don't like competition. They see prostitutes as competition. And so they work to eliminate those prostitutes or to traffic them as trafficking victims. And so when you have the elected officials actually participating as customers in the commercial sex market, of course they're not going to speak in a big way about the human trafficking that's happening within our country. And to, they'll talk about the human trafficking that's coming across the southern border. And there is human trafficking that happens across the southern border, but it's so small compared to the amount of human trafficking that happens of our children in the United States of America. It never, ever leaves the United States of America. That's the real problem that they need to start addressing.
You are taking action on this right now. You're the founder of deliverfund.org. How is DeliverFund aiming to end human trafficking, and how realistic of a goal is that?
So we operate off of the principle of market disruption, and really, to really get nerdy about it, we are a negative externality that gets introduced into the demand side of the human trafficking market. So that's just a really fancy way of saying we work with law enforcement and industry to go after the traffickers, because you cannot have human trafficking victims if you do not have human traffickers. So we work with law enforcement and industry to target those traffickers and bring them to justice so that we don't have more human trafficking.
Social media is connected to all of this, and we're seeing more states, including here in Florida, enact laws that at least try to give parents more power over what their kids are being exposed to online. But as with any law, you know it's not perfect. There are loopholes. So how much of this can be legislated? And how much can lawmakers really do, and do you think they're doing enough?
So lawmakers are not even close to doing enough. We have nothing but blue ocean in front of us as far as legislation and policy is concerned. But I do want to applaud Florida and Texas for the laws that they've recently enacted to protect children from not just traffickers, but from sextortion, from all of the different ways that children are exploited online. Almost all of the human trafficking cases that we work with law enforcement, and we currently are partnered with over 600 law enforcement agencies across the United States. Almost all of those cases originate online. So when you look at the data on the explosion of human trafficking, you look at what has happened in the human trafficking market, you find that social media actually plays the primary role. So if social media and online platforms play the primary role and not only allowing human traffickers to get in touch with their potential victims, but also in the selling of these victims, that means that there's a lot of blue ocean for Congress and state legislatures to enact policies that will protect our children.
Well, Nick, I think you just confirmed what every parent kind of worries about that keeps them up at night when it comes to their kid and phones. How does deliverfund.org empower parents to protect their kids?
So you can go to deliverfund.org, and we have online computer-based training, Human Trafficking 101. And it's a course that you can go through and get a certificate of completion around, where we'll teach you what human trafficking actually is. We also have an app on the App Store, so you can just search for HT Safeguard or just search for Deliver Fund. And what that app does is it allows parents and teenagers to have access to our human trafficking adjacent database. And so human traffickers use phone numbers and email addresses just like everybody else. So if you put a phone number or an email address into our app and it comes back positive, you know you need to do some further investigation to see if the person that you're communicating with is safe to communicate with.
Deliverfund.org. He is Nic McKinley, one of the good guys in the battle against human trafficking. Nick, many thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Stay with us. Our final thoughts next.